Ray's coming to our event, and that's exactly how I'm going to introduce Ray next week. So. I'm just kidding. So quick story, really quick. I have this book, not because I'm going to read it to you guys, but because Russell Brunson was here, and so this story is a little bit for him, and then I'm going to get into my content. So I have a book collector guy, right? And this is so interesting. I was trying to get a first edition Napoleon Hill book signed. And when I reached out to this collector, he said, I'm sorry, it was just sold. And I said, who on earth would want this book more than me? You know, how is there anybody else out there that wants this? He's like, yeah, I sold it to Bob Proctor. I said, how is that possible? So I said, Bob is dead. There's no way. He said, well, and so I called Bob Proctor's assistant, and I called his camp, and I said, it wasn't us. I said, well, who was it? He said, Russell Brunson. So Russell, whenever you're sick of that book, I'd like you to buy that for me. All right, guys, let's get down to business today. So my topic is face your fears. Let's pull up these slides here. You guys see that? Okay. And this is a really interesting topic, and we've talked about it kind of a lot in this event. Jessica talked about her fears, her biggest fears. She was embarrassed, you know, of her mother and going through that whole journey. But I'm going to give you guys some tactical advice, some things that I've learned personally that I've overcome myself. But before I give you any of this information, I think it's really important that you guys understand that you're not going to be able to do anything with this information unless you're ready to receive it. And like Ray said, I used to do tactics. Nobody did anything. So I just want to say that really quickly. You got to be ready to receive it. So you've got to prepare your mind, right? So there's three things that you have to do to prepare your mind. Number one is you have to be okay with calling yourself out on your own stuff. Self-analysis. Number two, you have to make a commitment to study. Personal growth is so difficult without that piece. And number three, you've got to have an understanding of the three big enemies. The three biggest enemies are indecision, doubt, and fear. Now, indecision is the seedling of fear. And when it crystallizes with doubt, it becomes fear. So let's get into this. What is fear? Well, according to Napoleon Hill, fear is nothing more than a state of mind, right? It's a mental game. It's a figment of our imagination. Fear is not real unless you say it is, right? Every human being has the ability to completely control his or her mind. Everything that man or woman creates begins in the form of a thought first. And this leads one very near to the principle by which fear can be mastered. Before I go into my next slide, I want to just share something that I learned from my mentor, Bob Proctor. I had the privilege to work with him before he passed, and he shared so many good nuggets of information with me that I'd like to share with you guys as well. When he talks about fear, he talks about it a little bit differently. He says, now, what you have in network marketing is you've got people that are employees now trying to become entrepreneurs. Now, some are coming from the entrepreneur world as well, but here's what's happening. You join your company, right? And you've made $50,000 a year for the last 10 years of your life. So you are what we call an X-type vibration, right? You have X-type thinking, you've got X-type thinking and feeling, and you've got X-type vibration. You're on an X-type frequency. Now, what does that mean? That sounds like voodoo talk. I don't know, maybe you guys understand that, but here's the thing. When you're thinking thoughts of $50,000 a year, you're never going to make $50,000 a month until you start entertaining a new idea. And so what happens when you get into your first network marketing company, or you join a new company, or you start a business for the first time, is you now entertain a Y-type idea. So what happens? Well, now you've got a Y-type idea in your thinking mind, your conscious mind, but you've got X-type feelings in your subconscious mind that are still rooted there. So when Jessica was talking about this embarrassment that she had from her past, she was dealing with fear of criticism. I'm going to talk about that today. So even though she had Y-type ideas of things she wanted to accomplish out there, internally she was still an X. Her subconscious mind was still an X. So what does that do to somebody? Well, now they have X, Y frequency, X-type vibration. Now they're in a chaotic environment. So you say, I want to make $50,000 a month, but what happens? You hit a wall. You hit the terror barrier. And how do you hit that wall? Well, it's because you create this Y-type idea, this happy idea of making more money, but you can't get back to, but you go back to the bondage with your X-type conditioning. Now, that sounds confusing, but I'm going to bring it all home in just a minute. One of my favorite stories I've ever heard about fear before was actually from Will Smith. I don't know if you guys have seen his skydiving video. He talks about how he was getting drunk with his friends, and they're all taking shots, and they're like, yeah, let's go skydiving tomorrow. He's like, yeah, let's go skydiving tomorrow. And then they leave, and he goes back to his room, and he's like, he has a hope that maybe they're just going to forget about that in the morning. Like maybe, they're not really going to make us go skydiving. So that night he's going to sleep, and he wakes up sometime in the middle of the night, and he's like, holy crap, I'm jumping out of an airplane tomorrow. Like, why am I doing that? He couldn't sleep, So then breakfast comes, morning comes, and he's sitting down at breakfast, and he realizes all the guys showed up. He's like hoping, a few people would not show up for sure. Everybody shows up. So he can't eat his breakfast, his stomach's in knots, feeling terrible. But everybody's ready to go. So they go, they head to the airport, they get to the airport, they get on the plane, and it's becoming more and more real. And he's sitting on the plane, and they're giving him a safety brief, and they're like, listen, in case your parachute doesn't open, this is what you're gonna do. He's like, hold on, what do you mean in case it doesn't open? I'm like, it's gonna open, right? He's like, I got kids, I gotta get home too, this is, he's freaking himself out. So now he's getting ready to jump out, right? And they open the plane door. And he's like, for the first time in my life, I realized I'd never been in a plane with the door open before. So that thought sets in, and down below is death. They have the three lights. It was like red, yellow, and green. And on green, they push you. They count to 3, but they push you on 2 because they know if they wait to 3, you're holding on, And so he has all this anxiety, all this fear, all this craziness up inside him. He couldn't even eat his breakfast. He's tripping out. And now is the time for him to jump. So he gets to the edge of that plane, and they count 1, 2, and they push him out. And he's flying. And he's like, I'm freaking out. This is the scariest moment of his life. Maximum danger. But what he realizes a couple seconds later is that it's pure bliss. It's pure bliss. At the maximum point of his fear or his danger was the minimum amount of fear that he had. All his fear was gone because he was doing it now. And so the lesson he learned was that the best things in life are on the other side of fear, right? And you can't succeed at anything until you push through that fear. You're afraid to call your first prospect. You're afraid to call the 6 or 7 or 8-figure income earner. You're afraid to reach out to them. You're afraid to do all these things. You're afraid to quit your job. You're afraid to, what if? But if you don't push through those things, you can't succeed, right? So Will Smith says, the only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It's a product of our imagination. Causing us to fear things does not present and may not ever exist. We're literally afraid of things that may or may not even happen. The opposite of fear, I know I've heard this a lot at this event, people will say is faith. But I'm here to tell you that's not it. Because blind faith isn't worth diddly. It's faith based on understanding. When you have understanding, you're not afraid anymore. You ever walk into a dark room before and you think there's a cockroach on the floor or something? And you're like, what if I step on it? Y'all, I was poor, okay? So that's my fear when I walk in a dark room. Now it's scorpions. We live in Vegas. But what happens when you turn the light on? You realize, oh, there's nothing there. I'm good. Because you have that information, you're no longer afraid, right? So I'm going to give you guys information so that you will have no fear. Sound good?
Yeah.
So here's the most common types of fear. The fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, and the fear of success. Now, when I first got into this industry, I was so afraid of losing money. Not because of like how much it cost to join or anything like that. I was afraid of leaving my livelihood behind. I had built up an insurance business. I was doing okay. You know, I didn't need this in my life, I thought. But I wanted to challenge myself because I knew it wasn't enough. The fear of poverty is what holds literally the majority of everybody back. The fear of poverty is without a doubt the most destructive of all fears and is the most difficult to master. Because literally you're looking in your physical reality right now and the money in your bank account right now, and you're trying to visualize a few more zeros there. And if you can master the imagination of more zeros there, you can achieve more zeros there. But if you're always thinking of less zeros and negatives, then that's what you're going to attract also. Now, the fear of poverty shows up in a lot of different ways. It shows up in indifference, indecision, doubt, worry, overcaution, and procrastination. You know, procrastination is just a type of fear. I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next year, that's my goal for next month. Putting off what you can do today. So here's how we conquer it. Number one, only focus on what you actually want. Now that sounds pretty simple, but literally it's shielding yourself from everything else around you that is not what you want. That means friends, family, what you're watching on TV, what's playing in your car, when you're driving to work or when you're going to the store. You gotta ignore all feelings and thoughts and don't take any actions towards the things you don't want. So if you want to buy that $2 million house and you're saying, well, I don't have the money for that, well, you have to start telling yourself, I have the money for that. You have to start telling yourself that you have the things that you wish you had because that's how they show up later. So I want you guys to write a script of exactly the things that you want. Now, when you're setting a goal, don't set just any regular goal. For some of you, you think that it's important to set incremental goals, small goals, because they're more believable. No, I want you guys to set massively insane, huge goals. A C-type goal. An A-type goal is something you already know how to do. So you already hit diamond, or whatever the ranks are, right? You already hit that, but you lost the rank, and now your goal is to hit that rank again. Your goal is not to hit that rank again, you already did that. Your goal is to buy a car, a brand new car. Have you ever bought a new car before? If you say yes, well, that's not a goal, you already did that. You've been knowing how to do that this whole time. A B-type goal, on the other hand, is something that you think you can do. You think in your mind, I may have the right information, I may have the right plan, I possibly have the right resources, I can probably do that. So you're making maybe $25,000 in volume a month now, you want to take that to $50,000 a month next month. You're thinking incrementally, right? But here's the thing, there's no inspiration behind that. That's not exciting enough, so you're probably going to give up on that. And so you want to set a C-type goal. A C-type goal is really the big goal. You want to walk across the stage in 40 countries. Like, you want to become a best-selling author, right? Like, the biggest type goals you can think of. All right? Number two is act as if you already have it. So this is an actor's technique. How would you be if you were already the best version of yourself? And why can't you do that right now? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you speak to people? How would you present yourself to the world? You can start being that right now. You don't have to wait. You can start acting as if right now. And number three, rely on the unseen forces. Living in a state of trusting that you're going to be caught no matter what. That's hard for some people, but it really is the secret, all right? Fear of criticism, you guys. This is, you're afraid to not lose it all financially. That's poverty. Now, one thing I forgot to say that I'm going to say really quickly is types of fear. When you think fear, think consciousness, okay? So poverty, consciousness. Criticism, consciousness. Because this is about being in the vibration that you're in, right? The criticism consciousness. That means you think people are going to make fun of you. You think people are going to say no to you. You think people are going to say, why would I join you, right? Or why would I want to be in your business? People pleasing, right? Self-approval, boasting of imaginary achievements. Fear to express opinions. Lack of confidence in one's own ideas. Mental, physical laziness. That's a fear of criticism. Here's how we do this. How to conquer. Embrace the illogical. And be so sold out on your vision that literally nothing can stop you. I had to do this myself, you guys. I started a company even though I was engaged to a company owner. I started my own company because he told me no. I said, these products would be amazing for this company, our company that we're in right now. He said, no. And I said, then I got to start my own. So when Jessica said, I don't know if Ray's going to like this, but I'm going into real estate, I was like, I know how that feels. Been there before. Now, of course, we merged our companies, so it worked out. But don't be afraid of what anybody thinks. You got to be sold out. Now, you're not going to make big jumps in life if you don't do the illogical and be okay with doing the illogical. The biggest obstacle to overcoming the odds is never challenging them. There's a sure way to avoid criticism, and that's be nothing, do nothing, get a job as a sweet sweeper, and kill off a mission. The remedy never fails. Number 2, you got to develop inner self-confidence. We got to work on our self-image. Because if you know who you are, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. But you got to have a good understanding of yourself. It's not a personality trait. You ever see, oh, they're just confident people. No, they cultivated that. They worked on that. They learned how to do that. Napoleon Hill actually has a self-confidence formula. You can look that up. I guarantee you if you say that out loud in the mirror twice a day, every single day for the next 30 days, you will have a lot of confidence. Now, confidence is an interesting thing because people say, I don't have it. Well, everybody has confidence. It just depends on what topic. For instance, my grandma has a lot of confidence when it comes to baking a pie. I have 0. I can read directions. That's about it. Some people have confidence in tuning up a car. I don't have confidence in that, but I have confidence in this industry. You will have confidence as you gain more knowledge as well. Number 3, seek failure. Don't avoid it. This is part of the process. Because every failure, every setback, everything that life throws your way is literally for you. It's for you. Your flat tire on the way here, that was for you. Okay, all the things that seem negative has a polar opposite, and you get to choose how you look at it. Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things, and that thing will change. You got to risk believing in yourself. The only thing of significance that has been standing in the way is you. And you got to put your foot on the neck of the fear of criticism, according to Napoleon Hill, by reaching a decision not to worry about what anybody else is thinking. All right, here's my favorite one. This is the fear of success. So, interesting thing happened to me, all right? And I'm going to share a personal story. And that is, I thought I was at the top. I thought I was at the pinnacle of success. I had done it. I had reached $1 million a month. And I thought there was nowhere else to go. I'm done. I did it. I guess I'm retired. I guess I'm good. My goal wasn't big enough because I was thinking about what does success mean? I was like, do I really need a Lamborghini? No, I don't need that to be happy. Do I really need a big house? No, I don't need that. Do I really need the bag? No, I don't need any of that. In fact, last year, the whole entire year, I had dreadlocks, y'all. And I went to convention and had clothing because I was on that spiritual journey too. And I realized that what I thought success was money. And so when I got the money, I realized I was unhappy too. So let's think about this for a minute. Do you guys know the definition of success? The definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So what does that mean? That's the school teacher that shows up every single day to work that loves what she does. She's doing it. She's successful because she's doing exactly what she intended to do. The problem is the majority of people are not doing what they intend to do. And that's why they're not successful. I had to realize that I had to fall in love with the process. And so that's how you conquer your fear. Number one, give yourself permission to aim high. Like we've heard this from Jessica and other speakers. Don't wait for anybody else to give yourself permission. You can do that yourself. And number two, success is not an end goal. It's not a destination that you reach. You don't just get there one day and say you're done. That's not how it works. Success is rented. You pay rent every single day. You have to prove yourself every single day. You have to show up as your best self every single day, and you got to fall in love with the journey. You guys ever fall in love before with anybody? Yes, you remember how that feels, right? That early passion, you doing stupid stuff that doesn't even make sense. Y'all, when I started dating Josh, I was wearing my makeup to bed. I had wigs back then. I was not taking them off. Y'all, let me tell you. I was in love, so I was acting so stupid. Well, what's the problem? This is the problem. We also face this in network marketing. You fall in love with your company, right? You're so excited. You get out there. You're selling like crazy. You're recruiting like everybody. And then what happens 2 months later? You find out things you don't like. Right? How long have y'all been married? Raise your hand if you've been married at least 20 years. Quite a few of you. Are you still in love? Or are you frenemies now? Still in love. You work at it, right? You work towards that. You have to work at it. It's not just something you feel that just you have or don't have. So the same thing happens in your business. Even after your husband starts chewing in that annoying way, he leaves his laundry on the floor every single time, and you're like, I know, I told you that this is the laundry bin. You start seeing things, you're like, why didn't I notice that before I married you? My grace period's over, it's too late. I have to work at it. It's the same thing in network marketing, you guys. It's the same exact thing, okay? So you have to fall in love with your business. You got to fall in love with your company, and you have to show up every single day, but you have to work at it. You have to cultivate that desire. You got to cultivate that passion. It doesn't just show up for some people and not for others. It's something that you work on every day. And number three, you got to embrace the metamorphosis. So the majority of people that don't want to change fear leaving who they are now. This is how it shows up. I'll never forget where I started. I'm never going to forget where I started too, but half of my brain for sure I'm going to forget where I started because my eyes are going forward. I don't want to be backwards. I don't want to keep retelling the same stories of my broken home and all of my issues. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm embracing the metamorphosis. I'm embracing the change. You got to be uncomfortable. You got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That's the only way to grow. You know, Will Smith said something interesting. He said, he's embracing a daily confrontation with fear. He's embracing that confrontation every day. And let's think about it. We live in a world right now where people are afraid of confrontation. Why can't I say that word? No, I could say it backstage. And I come up here, I can say it. So you got to embrace the struggle because that is going to change your entire life, all right? Uneasiness is a predictable psychological reaction when a quantum leap is underway. So if you feel uncomfortable about your next move, good. You should feel uncomfortable. In fact, if you've been comfortable for a long time, that's when you should start asking questions. You must be off path if things are easy. Things have to get hard, right? I know there was a hurricane here recently, and it's so hard in the midst of chaos and crisis to look for the good and look for the silver lining. But something good always comes out of every tragedy, right? Something good always comes from every crisis. With every crisis, there's an equivalent opportunity. So you guys, I want to share this, and then I'm going to wrap up here. I didn't have all the answers when I became successful. I didn't have all the resources either. You know, Bob Proctor said something really funny that I remembered, and he said, he was talking to a couple, and they said, well, we want to buy a house. He said, okay, great, we'll go buy a house. They're like, well, we don't have the money. And he's like, well, what do you need the money for? You haven't decided you're going to buy a house. The money will show up once you make the decision. Once you make the decision and you move forward, the resources always show up. You got to take the first step. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just have to take the first step. Now, if you're always preparing to work, do you find yourself that you've become a professional meeting attender, but you never get to the work? You're sitting down ready to make your calls and you're organizing your paper clips for the 50th time before you get on the phone? Y'all are laughing because you know what I'm talking about. You're like, I'm gonna make my calls, but first I'm gonna organize my desk. Matter of fact, I'm gonna clean my whole house. Once my house is clean, then I can make my calls, right? You're never gonna be ready. Ready doesn't exist. Ready is right now. Getting ready is a stalling tactic. It's an act of anxiety. It's a con game. You're working on yourself. The time to start is right now. Now here's another thing I'm going to share, and I'm getting off this stage and we'll bring Ray back up. But everything else that you require comes from inside of you. The opportunity, the power to perform, those are in you, not the situation, not your circumstances, not your conditions that you're living in now. Look inside at what pulls at your consciousness. For there you're going to find direction. You're going to find the plan. You're going to find the answers. You're going to find the resources. Everything else in the universe is already in position, waiting for you to decide. Thank you guys so much for having me.